Hunter x Hunter is returning on the 7th of October 2024 with the release of chapter 401. It has been almost 2 years since the last chapter, so I'm sure that the details of the current goings on in the story may be a bit sketchy to some of you. So in this video, I want to go over absolutely everything that you need to know about the Succession Contest arc before you read the latest chapter of Hunter x Hunter. So without further delay, let's go over all of the chapters for the uncompleted latest story arc of the series. The Dark Continent Expedition arc. It is a transitionary arc which helps the story to progress from the 13th Hunter Chairman election arc to the Succession Contest arc. Prior to this arc, we had heard about the Dark Continent from Jin when he was speaking to Gon on top of the World Tree. In this very short arc, we learn a lot of information about the world of Hunter x Hunter. There is a lot of exposition and it is very dialogue heavy. New characters are introduced and we learn a lot more information about existing characters that we knew little about. In addition to this, we get the reintroduction of characters like Kurapika, who has not been in the story since the York New City arc. So without further ado, let's get into this exposition heavy arc. The Dark Continent Expedition arc is the first in our manga exclusive arc breakdowns. The material that I'll be covering in this video has not been adapted into the 2011 anime. After the first chapter of this arc was published in 2012, the series went on to hiatus until 2014, where Togashi had returned to complete the final 8 chapters of this arc. Because of this, and the way that this arc ends and seamlessly transitions into the next one, it wasn't adapted into the 2011 anime. The Chairman election arc seemed like a fitting end to the 2011 anime, especially as it wrapped up Gon's story. The material that I'll cover from this video spans from chapters 340 to 348. Despite only being 9 chapters long, this arc is dialogue heavy, as there is a lot of exposition and setup for the future of Hunter x Hunter. As the story evolves from being centered around Gon and his quest to find his father, Togashi introduces us to the true scale of the world of Hunter x Hunter. As the story starts to revolve around several different characters who have very differing motives, it is a lot to juggle and sometimes difficult to understand, but hopefully in this video I'll be able to explain to you all of the new concepts that are introduced and what the differing motives of each of the characters are. The arc begins with the Zodiacs gathering for a meeting, as it is brought to their attention that the king of the Kakin Empire has decided to advance onto the Dark Continent. We learn that whenever humanity had tried to go to the Dark Continent in the past, they had brought back with them great calamities. The last official attempts to go to the Dark Continent were over 200 years ago. The Kakin Empire is not within the V5, so it is exempt of their laws and restrictions, thus allowing them to fully partake in an expedition to the Dark Continent. In chapter 342, we learn that the world of Hunter x Hunter that we have known so far is just a group of islands which is in the middle of a gigantic lake. Of course, these islands are not small. Due to their size, they are considered to be continents of themselves, but they are small in comparison to the true scale of the world. The world of Hunter x Hunter is located within an enormous lake called Lake Mobius. This lake is located in the center of the Dark Continent. It is said that the Dark Continent is a freakish display of Mother Nature. It is inhabited with gigantic monsters and filled with various different diseases. Due to the known and mostly unknown dangers within the Dark Continent, the V5 had forbidden its member groups to explore any more of the Dark Continent. During the history of mankind, they had tried to go there 149 times, but out of all of these trips, only 5 returned with survivors. There were 28 people who had stepped foot onto the Dark Continent and had returned. One of these individuals is Isaac Netero himself. Each of these 5 voyages that returned brought back with them a great calamity. These would eventually come to be known as the 5 great calamities of the Dark Continent. Of the 28 people who had returned from the Dark Continent, there is only 1 survivor now, and it just so happens to be Isaac Netero's son, Beyond Netero. We learn that the Kakin Empire has organized a expedition team, and the individual that they have chosen to lead this team is none other than Isaac Netero's son. This revelation comes as a surprise to the Zodiac members, as not many people had known that he had a son. In his opening statements, Beyond Netero states that his father had always said that when you stop challenging yourself, that is when your life is truly over. Beyond wants to decipher all of the myths and to explore the ruins within the Dark Continent. He wants to know where our ancient ancestors came from. Fitting to his name, he wants to go beyond his father. He wants to remove all of the obstacles that are stopping humanity from exploring the Dark Continent. He has an open invitation to anybody who is willing to join him on this voyage. Beyond Netero promises to the world that he will take them to the Dark Continent in order to explore the new world. We learn that Beyond has been planning to go to the Dark Continent for a long time. If Beyond had wanted to go on his expedition with the permission of the V5, then he would have been caught up in years of legal paperwork, which have purposely been put in place to stop individuals from wanting to go to the Dark Continent. But Beyond doesn't want to sit around for years waiting for permission and to play by V5's rules. His desire is to go where no one has gone before. He wants to meet individuals that nobody has ever met. He wants to explore the Dark Continent without any restrictions. He wants to acquire resources that nobody has touched. He wants to leave his own unique mark on this unexplored territory. Beyond is fixated on this goal. He is accepting of anybody who wants to join him on his expedition, but at the same time he doesn't care if anybody wants to leave also. He states that the only thing that will bother him is if someone tries to interfere with his plans. In chapter 340 we learned that Pariston and Jin have coincidentally resigned from the Zodiacs, just as Beyond had announced his plans for his upcoming expedition. In response to Beyond's announcement, the V5 have ordered the Zodiacs to hunt him down. The Kakin Empire is doing as they please because they haven't signed the treaty that the V5 members have signed. This treaty forbids the V5 from entering into the New World. So in effect, the Kakin Empire have skipped all of the screening processes that the V5 have set in place. In chapter 341 we learned that the entrance to the Dark Continent is guarded by a gatekeeper. Very little is known about this gatekeeper, but he is mentioned in passing conversations several times during this arc. The Dark Continent is described as Pandora's box. It is something that should not be opened. In chapter 341 we are shown the risks of exploring the Dark Continent through seeing examples of the 5 great calamities and the effects that they have had on humanity ever since they had come from the Dark Continent. We are shown human bodies that have been twisted and contorted like wrung out towels. They are preserved within glass jars to remind humanity of the risks of exploring the New World. We are also introduced to a survivor of one of the great calamities. It has transformed the individual into something that is no longer a human, as it no longer eats food, and it is self-sustaining, as it has survived for over 50 years without a meal. We learned that the V5 had made this treaty to not go to the New World after they realized that every time that humanity had returned from there, they flee from this unexplored land, bringing back with them an extinction-level threat. During the expedition that Netero had gone on, he was accompanied by his son, and we learned that Beyond Netero had been trying to go through unexplored routes, and this resulted in many casualties. Because of this, he had ended up returning from his expedition and introducing new threats into the world. During the lifetime of Isaac Netero, his son had tried to go to the Dark Continent once more, but he had forbid him to, at least until after his death. We cut back to the Zodiac members who were left with a message from Netero. It is said that this message should be shown to the Zodiac members if someone were to appear claiming to be a son. In this message, Netero says that he had gone to the Dark Continent twice when he was younger, but the strength required to explore this new world is not what he was looking for. He had been searching for strength through an individual that he could see as an opponent, with the only outcomes being victory or defeat. Instead, what he had found in the new world was not a strong opponent, but rather a harsh battle against Mother Nature, where there is no clearly defined victor. He eventually cuts to the chase, and in his message he requests that the Zodiac members successfully explore the Dark Continent before his son Beyond Netero does. He requests them to overcome any of the risks that are associated with the new world, asking them to return with hope. The difficulty of this request is of course an A rank. He tries to disguise this final wish as a request and not an order, but the Zodiac members are well aware that Netero had not asked for anything but this, so it feels like an order, so they are left with no choice but to adhere to his final request, and to explore the Dark Continent themselves. In a surprising turn of events, Beyond Netero hands himself into the Hunter Association at the end of chapter 341. He does so that there are no problems between the discussions that are occurring between the V5 and the Kakin Empire. He wants the Kakin Empire to meet the V5's necessary requirements in order to enter the Dark Continent without any issues. The V5 want to include the Kakin Empire as a new leader country, so that they change into the V6, and they also want Beyond Netero to be captured. This is so that any expeditions or voyages to the New World can be supervised by the V5 organization. They are aware that the Kakin Empire wants to explore the Dark Continent in order to colonize it, so in chapter 342 we learn that the V5 wants to trick them by giving the Kakin Empire islands which are on the outskirts of Lake Mobius. These islands are located in the waters just before the Dark Continent. They want to make them believe that they have reached and conquered the Dark Continent by handing them over these islands. But now that Beyond Netero has handed himself in and appearing to comply with the V5, in actual fact he has a plan of his own. The V5 have no intention of allowing the Kakin Empire to explore the Dark Continent on their own. They instead want to supervise their actions. And now that Beyond Netero has handed himself in, they are able to supervise and to restrict him. The 5 great calamities are like a preview of what to expect from the Dark Continent. These are the threats that humanity had brought back from there. The The first is the botanical weapon called Bryon. It is a sphere that protects mysterious and ancient ruins found within the New World. Then there's the gaseous life form called AI. It is described as the codependence of desire, and it would appear that Alucard's powers have originated from this gaseous life form. The third calamity is the twin snake called Hellbell. It is a monster that infects its prey with a homicidal desire. The fourth is a beast that keeps people as pets, called Pup. And lastly, the fifth great calamity is called Zobe, the immortality disease. It is described as endless despair which is disguised as hope. If you recall, we had seen an example of a victim who has fallen to Zobe, having survived 50 years without any food. But the consequence of this is that the individual no longer appears to be a human. The fact that the Kakin Empire have made the general public know about the expedition leads the V5 to come up with a strategy to properly supervise it, as it will be impossible to make the Kakin Empire listen to them now that the news has gone public. In order to calm the situation and to peacefully resolve this issue, they need to invite the Kakin Empire into the V5. Now that Beyond has handed himself in, the Hunter Association will act as his chaperones during the expedition. The Zodiac members rightfully assume that Beyond is currently playing along just so that he can get to the Dark Continent while being supervised, but once he arrives on the uncharted territory, then he will escape and do as he pleases. It is up to the Hunter Association to come up with a way to prevent him from escaping, and to properly supervise him and to prevent any of his accomplices from breaking him out. In chapter 342, we are shown how the Kakin Empire plans to transport people to the Dark Continent. They have built a giant transport ship called the Black Whale No. 1. It has a capacity to carry 200,000 people. This will be the ship that will carry the expedition team into the New World. On board will be the king of the Kakin Empire and his 14 princes. So now that we know the premise and the context of this arc, let's now look at some other characters aside from Beyond Netero and the Zodiacs. When it comes to Jin's character, we know that he has wanted to explore the Dark Continent from the previous arc. He supports the efforts that the Kakin Empire are going through, and it is for this reason that he also supports Beyond Netero. But he does appear to have a problem with Pariston, who is second in command of the expedition team. Jin understandably believes that Pariston's intentions are not clear. He thinks that he wants to sabotage the expedition to the Dark Continent, all for his own pleasure, and it is for this reason that he has joined Beyond Netero's team. And this is why Jin is so adamant in this arc to take the position of second in command of the expedition. Jin doesn't necessarily want to even be in control. He just wants Pariston to not be number 2 under Netero, whether in position or even rank. And this way, he can prevent Pariston from sabotaging their efforts. In his efforts to become the second in command, Jin offers a lot of money to the other members of the expedition team so that they can accept him as the number 2. He has plenty of reasons to suspect Pariston's actions, especially knowing that he has 5,000 Chimera Ant soldiers on standby waiting for whatever command that he throws at them. In chapter 343, Leorio becomes a member of the Zodiacs because of his exceptional performance at the elections. Because of this, he has become a very well respected member of the Hunter Association, and it is for this reason that he has been invited to become a Zodiac member. Knowing that there is another vacant spot within the Zodiacs, he recommends Kurapika for the position. After initially being apprehensive, he is convinced to join the Zodiacs, after learning that the 4th Kakin prince called Saraidnik owns the remainder of his clan's eyes. Kurapika joins the Zodiacs and he immediately assists them. He does so by identifying traitors within the Zodiacs and even within the Hunter exam. He is looking for individuals who may be assisting Pariston and even beyond with his escape plan. We can see that Kurapika's character is very different. We can only assume that this has happened because he has allowed himself to become further consumed with his goal of revenge. I feel like he is no longer the Kurapika that we knew prior to the York New City arc. Thanks to Kurapika's help, at the end of the Dark Continent expedition arc, we learned that Monkey is the traitor within the Zodiac, and in regards to retrieving the remainder of his clan's eyes, he desires to speak with Saraidnik and to convince him to give the eyes back. He knows that all of the 14 Kakin princes will be on board the Black Whale on the expedition to the Dark Continent. This is why he will try to infiltrate in their ranks, so that he may be able to speak to Saraidnik. Another character that is briefly mentioned in this arc is Gon. We learn about his whereabouts and updates as to how he is progressing. Gon is unable to use Nen, which results in his father advising him to seek out what he is able to do now that he has lost his powers. This results to Gon returning back to his home on Whale Island, where we see him studying and catching up with paperwork, for now living what seems to be a normal life. Another important story beat which the next arc will be focused upon is the succession contest. We know that the 14 princes of the Kakin Empire will be on board this expedition. The king of the Kakin Empire declares that the sole survivor of this voyage will be the next king, so the 14 princes have a lot on the line to wage war against each other, so that one of them may be declared the next king. In chapter 348, we get introduced to Benjamin, another one of the princes. We see him wrestling with a lion. We see Saraidnik speaking to him and discussing the succession contest. We see how the two of them are both sinister and evil in their own unique way. Saraidnik may not have the strength of Benjamin, but he appears to be extremely formidable through his facial expressions alone. You can see that this character is very twisted, especially considering the fact that we have seen him collect body parts and kill multiple women within this arc. It is evident from chapter 348 that Saraidnik will do anything in his power to become the next king, so it's definitely interesting to see how these events will unfold in the next arc. The Dark Continent is a vast unexplored region. There cures to many different illnesses will be found. It is rumoured that the secrets to longevity or even immortality may be found there, so there is a lot of incentive for leader nations to be going to the Dark Continent, as each country has an equal chance of being responsible for finding the next innovation which will benefit human life. At the end of the Dark Continent expedition arc, we have a lot of unanswered questions. We continuously get mentions of the Gatekeeper of the Dark Continent. Aside from 2 mentions of him in chapter 341 and 342, we don't really know much more about this individual. In addition to this, in chapter 344, Jin has a shocking revelation of his own, as he states that there was an individual who had written a book called Journey to the New World, and there were 2 editions to this book, the East and the West editions. The only volume that has been found is the East version, and there are no signs of the West edition, which leads Jin to say that the West edition is still being written. This person had set out on his own expedition to the Dark Continent almost 300 years ago, and the fact that he is still writing the 2nd volume may be because he has consumed some of the longevity rice, or herbs that can cure ailments and illnesses. Jin reveals that the author of the book Journey to the New World is Gon and Jin's ancestor, called Don Freaks. This is an incredibly huge teaser for the upcoming events in the story. In addition to this, we don't know who the next king of the Kakin Empire will be. The Succession Contest arc takes place between chapters 349 to chapter 400 as of making this video. It is still incomplete, with a total of 52 chapters having been released from August of 2014 to December of 2022. Continuing on from the Dark Continent expedition arc, this story arc begins the succession contest between the 14 princes of the Kakin Empire, as they are tasked to kill each other as soon as the Black Whale begins its journey towards the Dark Continent, with the sole survivor being crowned as the new king of the Kakin Empire. We know that Kurapika has been hired as a bodyguard to protect the 8th queen and her daughter Prince Warble. Kurapika's main motive is to confront the individual who had last owned the eyes of his clan. This is none other than the 4th Prince Saraidnik. During this most recent arc, we also get to witness one of the best battles within the entire series, as Hisoka and Crollo finally face off against each other. So before I give everything away, let's start by talking about the preparations that were needed prior to setting off on the voyage for the Dark Continent. The current ruler of the Kakin Empire, King Nasubi, has his personal butler explain to Prince Saraidnik that the succession contest will begin as soon as the Black Whale begins its departure for the Dark Continent. If any of the 14 princes were to die prior to the departure, then the contest will be called off. We learn that the contest will be between the children of the 8 legal wives of King Nasubi. Of these 8 wives, he had 14 legitimate children, and despite their gender, all children are referred to as princes. Each prince, upon agreeing with the terms, has to take part in the seed urn ceremony, which is a tradition of the Kakin royal family. They offer up their blood to the urn, and in exchange they will be granted a special power. Each prince will give birth to a guardian spirit beast, which will serve to protect them, but it is to be noted that these guardian spirit beasts take after their user, so an individual who has very little conviction will produce a very weak guardian spirit beast, one that will be unfit to serve them or to protect them. These guardian spirit beasts are created from the deceased first king of the Kakin Empire, and his desire to preserve his lineage through his descendants. We know that these guardian spirit beasts are a type of parasitic Nen beast. They possess the descendant of the first king, and they feed on their aura. Using this as an energy source, they take shape and develop abilities which are influenced by the host's character and their personality. So the more sickening the character of the prince, the more disgusting and threatening looking their guardian beast will appear to be. All guardian beast spirits have 2 rules which they follow. They do not fight and kill each other, and they cannot attack another human being who is being guarded by a guardian spirit beast. Now, as far as Beyond Netero's role is concerned, he is currently in the custody of the Hunter Association. He clearly states in chapter 349 that he is only interested in exploring the Dark Continent, and he will not do anything to jeopardize his chances of traveling there. We learnt during the Dark Continent expedition arc that one of these Zodiac members is a mole. This individual is of course Sayu, and it seems as though he is working with Pariston in order to take back Beyond Netero. To prevent him from being freed from captivity, Kurapika proposes a plan, as he states that they need to restrain Sayu somehow before landing upon the new continent. Later, we learn that some of the princes of the Kakin Empire are hiring bodyguards. Unaware of the succession contest, Kurapika questions why 6 of the Kakin
princes are wanting to recruit bodyguards for the celebration and the journey. They're concerned that this will give an opportunity for some spies to board onto the ship. Kurapika ends up recruiting Basho, Biscuit, Hanzo, Izunavi, and Melody as the bodyguards for the 6 princes, and he tasks them to learn more information about the 4th prince Saraidnik. He wants to learn enough information in order to come into physical contact with Saraidnik. He then studies the 6 profiles of the princes. He then narrows down his analysis on 2 particular profiles, the first being the prince who had the highest reward by constantly increasing it so that it's higher than the others, and the second profile who had appeared to not change their price no matter how much the other princes had increased theirs. He deduces that the individual who had kept their price the same appears to have very strong self-esteem. It is like they are a competitive individual who likes to display power. He makes an assumption that this profile fits Prince Halkenberg. He deduces that if he was to work for this particular prince, then it would be the best choice for him to get closer to Saraidnik. So he decides to work as a bodyguard for the prince that he had assumed to be Prince Halkenberg. When he gets a response and he heads to meet his employer, he learns that he will be working for the 8th queen and the mother of Prince Warble, the 14th prince. It is here that Kurapika learns about the succession contest. Kurapika agrees to be their bodyguard while on the journey, as his friends have also been hired as bodyguards for the other princes, with Izunavi working for Prince Tyson, Basho working for Prince Luzurus, Melody working for Prince Kacho, Hanzo working for Prince Momose, and Biscuit working for Prince Mariam. We now turn our attention towards Heaven's Arena, where we learn that Hisoka has challenged Chrollo to a battle. The two of them agree to have a fight to the death. Hisoka had done very little to prepare for the bout, whereas Chrollo had developed new abilities in preparation for this fight. Chrollo begins the battle by using the ability Black Voice in order to control the referee of the match. He uses him as a shield in order to close the distance between himself and Hisoka. Chrollo is constantly pressuring Hisoka to think on his feet, as he then unveils a new ability that he has learned called Sun and Moon Paired Destruction. It allows Chrollo to detonate anything remotely that he has touched. He then reveals that by using an ability called Double Face, it allows him to use a bookmark on one particular page in order to maintain his ability so that he no longer has to hold the book open to use it. But if he was to hold the book open on another page, then it will allow him to use 2 abilities at once. When Chrollo goes on to explain all of the various different abilities that he has learned, Hisoka doesn't appear to be phased, as he enjoys witnessing people's plans fall apart. Chrollo is using Black Voice to control targets to attack, the ability Convert Hands to hide himself, creating copies with Gallery Fake, and controlling these copies with Order Stamp, and attaching his ability Sun and Moon to the copies in order to detonate them. It is evident that during this battle, Chrollo constantly has the upper hand. The complexity and the range of abilities makes the battle very unpredictable. Hisoka then begins to be attacked by doppelgangers made up of the spectators. They are being controlled by Chrollo's ability Order Stamp, as they have been given the command to break Hisoka. While Hisoka is distracted by the clones, Chrollo disguises himself and begins to attack Hisoka from behind. Hisoka is absolutely overjoyed by the level of skill that is on display. He is excited for more as it appears that he's being beaten by Chrollo. While Hisoka focuses on beheading the clones, Chrollo takes advantage of the situation as he continues to attack Hisoka while his guard is lowered. Chrollo then creates copies and he places Sun and Moon on them so that they won't disappear if he chooses to use other abilities. Hisoka only realizes this after Chrollo had tricked him into attacking a copy of himself that was being controlled by his ability Black Voice after he had used Convert Hands. It is so fascinating to see Hisoka keep up with Chrollo's complicated fighting strategy as he mixes up several abilities in various different combinations in order to catch Hisoka off guard. Hisoka deduces that Chrollo has been marking his clones with the ability Sun and Moon, while also using the ability Order Stamp to break him. He realizes that at any time Chrollo can make maximum powered explosive puppets encircle him and to detonate on command. After fighting off a crowd of clones, he realizes that the head that he has been holding in his hand helping him to attack the clones ends up detonating as it blows away his fingers. He then uses bungee gum to run alongside the spectator stands, but the clones follow him as they have been ordered to detonate at close range. He is then ambushed by a group of puppets that detonate and send him hurtling into the air towards another crowd of more explosive puppets. He questions whether if he is going to die. The puppets charge towards Hisoka as they surround him as an incredibly large explosion engulfs all of them. This brings an end to the deathmatch as we see Hisoka's corpse lying before Shellnark, Kotopi and Machi. Shellnark and Kotopi leave as Machi states that she will stitch Hisoka up, but before she can do anything, an aura emerges from Hisoka's corpse. As it seems as though he has come back to life, we learn that Hisoka had placed bungee gum on his heart and lungs in order to restart them if he were to ever die. After his revival, Hisoka admits that he had underestimated his opponent. He then restrains Machi using bungee gum, as he states that his new desire is to kill all of the members of the Phantom Troop. While Shalnak is speaking with Crawler on the phone, we learn that he is planning to board onto the Black Whale and to steal the valuables of the Kakin family. After hanging up, Shalnak wonders why Kotopi is taking so long in the bathroom, but it is then that Hisoka leaves the toilet with Kotopi's severed head in his hands, and while Shalnak is enraged, he takes advantage of his emotional state by dashing forward and powerfully striking his head, which immediately kills him. Shalnak's contorted corpse is tied to a swing and Kotopi's head is placed in front of him, as Hisoka has begun his mission to hunt down the spiders. Meanwhile, all of the Voyagers setting off for the Dark Continent gather within Kakin, as they are all present before the Black Whale. They begin entering the whale in a tier-based structure, as the first tier consists of the Kakin family, the V5 politicians, while the second tier consists of anybody rich enough to come, as well as celebrities, and tiers 3, 4 and 5 have been assigned to general passengers. The Black Whale one, which houses 200,000 passengers, as well as being the main area where the succession contest will be taking place, set sail for the Dark Continent after the departure ceremony, which involved the king, the princes and the queens. So let's now give a brief overview of each of the 14 princes who are involved within the succession contest. The first prince of the Kakin Empire and the eldest son is called Benjamin. He is an aggressive individual who has a lot of self-confidence. He is very large and muscular, and the first time that we see him, he is literally wrestling a lion. The second prince is Camilla. She is the eldest female among the 14 siblings. She has long hair which she fashions into a very complicated hairstyle. Throughout her appearances, we see her wearing several fancy dresses, and while she may appear to be elegant and well-mannered, she is in fact very sadistic. She's a heartless individual who has no issue with killing even a biological brother. The third prince, Zhang Li, is a bald, short man. In his appearance, he resembles a Chinese monk. He is a diplomatic individual who shows generosity and tolerance to others. He is the type to avoid conflict and killing, unless it is absolutely necessary. The fourth prince, Saraidnik, who I've mentioned several times, is of particular interest, because at some point he had obtained several scarlet eyes, which had belonged to Kurapika's clan. These are pairs of eyes that Kurapika had failed to track down. In terms of personality, Saraidnik is the worst of the worst. He is inhumane, as he takes a great deal of pleasure in slaughtering human beings and collecting their body parts. And in particular, he is overjoyed with the idea of being able to kill his siblings, as he views them all as trash. The fifth prince, Tubepa, is a scientist. She is a patient and tolerant individual, and she values traits like humility and modesty, and she has commented upon her siblings as she states that Benjamin is arrogant, while Zhang Li indulges in excess and luxury, and she has also criticized Camilla for her greed. Unlike a few of the other princes, she has demonstrated confidence in being able to win the succession contest. The sixth prince, Tyson, is a round-faced woman with a large head. She enjoys being in the company of handsome men, and this is the criteria that she had picked for assigning her bodyguards. After being assigned to her, she was very possessive of them, refusing to allow the Hunter Association to screen them. We learn that despite being involved within the succession contest, she is opposed to violence, and she believes that her teachings on love can change the world. The seventh prince, Lazarus, is a slim, long-nosed man. Very little is known about his personality, but we are aware that his older brother Saraidnik refers to him as a moron. We do learn that he has a compassionate side, as he wants to use the healthy drug clean leaf in order to rehabilitate any drug addicts. The eighth prince, Sail is referred to as a womanizer, as we see him constantly surrounded by women. Because of his lust and his gluttony, he refuses to be a part of the succession contest, as he'd rather enjoy himself at parties. Hakenberg is the ninth prince of the Kakin Empire. We learn that he is a pacifist, and he has no intention with participating within the succession contest, as he does not want to win the crown through bloodshed. He opposes the ways of the royal family and desires to change them. The 10th prince, Kacho, is the twin of the 11th prince, Fugetsu. We learn that she is cold-blooded and she has a shallow, spoiled personality. Unlike some of the other siblings, she has no problem with murdering her own blood. Kacho cares a great deal about her twin sister. Fugetsu, the 11th prince of the Kakin Empire, is quite shy and soft-hearted. It is evident that she is kinder than her twin sister, and she is more considerate to weaker subordinates than Kacho is. Fugetsu also appears to be opposed to the succession contest. The 12th prince is called Momose. She has long hair that she fashions into a ponytail. From what we see of her, she appears to be a gentle and calm girl, and we see that she is forgiving towards her mother, and she even feels pity for her brother Mariam for lacking the ability to become king. The 13th prince, Mariam, is a small child. He is fond of his pet hamster and he carries it around with him everywhere. He just seems to be happy to play video games, and he doesn't really hold negative feelings towards anybody. And the 14th and final prince, Warble, is the youngest amongst the 14 princes. She is in fact an infant, so she has no real defined personality. We know that Kurapika has been assigned as Prince Warble's bodyguard in order to protect her during the succession contest. The Black Whale One is currently headed for the new continent, which is one of several large islands that are dotted around the perimeter of the Dark Continent. The succession contest is scheduled to have concluded by the time the Black Whale One arrives at the new continent, with only one of the princes having survived and being crowned as the new king of the Kakin Empire. The succession contest is quite complicated, as it's far removed from a death match like what we had seen with Hisoka and Chrollo. So if any of the princes are to eliminate their competitors, then they are to do so in a discreet manner. We know that each of the princes have a guardian spirit beast that was assigned to them through the seed urn ceremony. They are a type of nen beast that acts as a parasite, and their role is to assist and to protect their user. At the onset of the succession contest, we are aware that none of the 14 princes had known about nen, so they don't really know how to control their nen beasts. And it is these nen beasts that are the main weapon for the princes to utilize during the succession contest. It is no secret that the 4th Prince Saraidnik has the highest likelihood of winning the succession contest. He proves to be a genius, as after learning about the existence of nen, he is able to learn about its core concepts within only a few days. And throughout the course of the succession contest arc, Saraidnik is continuously gaining more and more power. He has the innate ability to cultivate a large amount of nen aura, and he has become so powerful and well refined in his nen abilities that he was able to manifest a second nen beast without him even knowing. Saraidnik has also proven himself to be a nen specialist, as he has developed a powerful ability called Parallel Future. While Saraidnik is engaged in Zetsu, this ability allows him to momentarily see into the future. The 4th prince has proven to be a formidable threat during this contest. As I've said, throughout the course of this story arc, he has gained new abilities and is mastering nen at an incredible speed. Later we learn that Kurapika decides to teach nen to the bodyguards of several princes, who agree to his terms. He wants to balance out the playing field of the succession contest. The 6th Prince Tyson and the 2nd Prince Camilla had refused Kurapika's offer. Each of the princes who had agreed to Kurapika's training had sent 2 bodyguards each. Each of these bodyguards have their own motives and desires, and it's quite easy to get lost and for the story to feel very complicated, as so many new characters are being introduced all at once. What we need to know is that some of the bodyguards have ulterior motives, as a few of them already know how to utilize nen. The only certain thing is that none of them can be trusted, because at the end of the day they will be acting on the best interest of their prince. I'm fairly confident that they will go through great lengths in order for their respective prince to win. Like Prince Saraidnik, Hockenberg and Benjamin have also developed their own nen abilities, as well as the 2nd Prince Camilla having developed a post-mortem nen power. This ability is to be activated after Camilla is killed, as a giant nen beast that takes the appearance of a cat appears behind the killer, and it crushes them with its paws, extracting their life force. The cat then pours this life force into Camilla, thus resurrecting her. This nen ability has made it impossible to kill Camilla. Now, as of the release of chapter 390, we don't really know if any of the other princes have developed their own unique nen abilities or even know how to use this power. Of the 14 princes, we are aware that 3 of them have lost their lives, the first being Momose, the second being Kacho, and the final being Sade Sade. Now, earlier I did mention that Chrollo had expressed his interest in boarding the Black Whale One in order to steal the valuables of the Kakin family. We know that all of the current members of the Phantom Troop are actually on board of the Black Whale One, including Chrollo. They are aware that Hisoka has also boarded the Black Whale One, but they don't know which tier he is on. We are aware that Hisoka had even hired Illumi to join the Phantom Troop in their search to kill him.
Let's now go over the last batch of 10 chapters which Togashi released 2 years ago. So Prince Zhangli observes a strange phenomenon with his guardian spirit beast coin, which mysteriously changes its number from 1 to 10. Confused by what this means, Zhangli speaks with Onyo, the Jiyu family boss, but he also admits that he doesn't know much about guardian beast spirits as well as nen, but he promises to gather information for Zhangli. Meanwhile, the Jiyu family plan to defeat Hisoka, as well as offering the Phantom Troop access to tier 4 of the Black Whale in exchange for controlling their movements. Henry, under Onyo's orders, begins strategizing how to handle the Haley family and their leader Marina Perudo. Henry teams up with Lynch and Zakuro as they hunt Haley members on the 3rd tier, and after a confrontation at a burger joint, they defeat 2 soldiers, revealing that the Haley are disguising themselves as civilians. Henry utilizes his Nen ability called Biohazard in order to transform their guns into snakes. As the war between the Mafia families escalates, the search for Hisoka intensifies as Henry, Lynch and Zakuro use Zakuro's power to track blood traces as they discover a female Haley member and they gain insights into the group's movements. They are then spotted by 3 Haley members eager to level up by killing Henry as Padail attacks, but Henry counters using his power to restrain him with handcuffs made of pigeons. Despite Padail's weaponized abilities, Henry kills him by turning his own weapon against him as the remaining Haley members retreat as they recognize Henry's strength. With the fight escalating, Hisoka then appears in disguise and confronts Lynch and Zakuro. Hisoka quickly overpowers Lynch, leaving Zakuro terrified as he witnesses Hisoka's fearsome power. Meanwhile, the Cha-Ah family continues its investigations into Hisoka's whereabouts, planning to use the Mafia war to their advantage. Chapter 391 showcases the growing chaos, with multiple factions fighting for control aboard the Black Whale. Crowds begin to gather on tier 3 after Henry's battle as soldiers arrive but remain uninvolved. Instead, they offer Henry information on the Haley's hideout in exchange for a bribe. Henry agrees, securing a deal to investigate a hidden room which belongs to the Haley family. Misha, who is a deceased member of the Jiyu family, reappears as a post-mortem Nen ability activates, disposing of Padail's body, further highlighting the power of Nen within the Mafia war. Meanwhile, Zakuro and Lynch encounter Hisoka again, but this time with more caution. Hisoka remains elusive, thus leaving Zakuro and Lynch uncertain of what to do next. Henry later confronts Hisoka in a cinema, offering a deal to keep him out of the Mafia war in exchange for safety and a VIP room. Hisoka, however, prefers the chaos that is happening, and he makes it clear that he has no intention of aligning with any faction. While this is going on, Kenny from the Cha-Ah family attempts to gather more info on the Haley's hideout, but faces setbacks when a soldier mysteriously disappears. Chapter 393 begins with Nobunaga from the Phantom Troop meeting Luini, a Haley member. He proposes an alliance in order to destroy the Mafia as well as Kakin's royal family. Nobunaga refuses his offer and ends up killing him, determining his plan to be irrational. The Phantom Troop continue their hunt for Hisoka while the Haley regroup, discussing the loss of Luini and how to raise their levels using their Nen abilities. This leveling system that they're referring to is linked to their leader Marina, and it governs their powers. Elsewhere, we catch up with Henry's confrontation with Hisoka while Kenny brokers a deal with a corrupt soldier in order to acquire more information about the hideout of the Haley. As they attempt to infiltrate the hideout, the soldier disappears like I mentioned earlier. This highlights that the Haley family are utilizing some formidable defensive powers. Henry and Kenny investigate the soldier's disappearance and they enter room 3101 as they find a suspicious old man. After realizing that the man is using trickery, Henry stabs him, causing him to vanish, as this all but confirms that the Haley are using teleportation or some other secret Nen abilities in order to evade detection. Meanwhile, the Haley members continue their operations, with Billy performing a water divination test in order to determine his Nen type, as this reveals the strategic nature of the group. Their leader Marina is aware that her hideout will soon be discovered, as she plans to manipulate Prince Saraidnik's soldiers in order to maintain control over the situation. Her Nen ability and her recruitment of soldiers create more tension between the Mafia and the royal family. Elsewhere, the soldiers of Saraidnik speculate about the role of Nen in the Mafia battles, and they worry that escalating violence may attract the attention of the royal army and the Hunter Association. Their involvement will disrupt the stability of the ongoing succession war. Chapter 395 narrative switches between the investigation carried out by Nobunaga, Finks, and Feitan into the hideout of the Haley family, as we cut to a flashback to the early days of the Phantom Troop in Meteor City. In the present day, the Phantom Troop carefully examine room 3102 as they speculate about the nature of the traps that are awaiting them, as Nobunaga thinks back on the similarities between their group and the Haley, noticing how both had arisen from places of desperation and violence. The Phantom Troop flashback reveals the origins of the group, showing a young Krollo, Uvogin, and other future members as children as they were surviving in the harsh, lawless conditions of Meteor City. The group had become close after their mutual need to scavenge and protect each other within this desolate environment. We see a strong bond forming between Krollo, Pakunoda, and Uvogin, as this foreshadows the tight-knit relationship that is created, which would later define the Phantom Troop. Chapter 395 strangely ends with the group planning a movie dubbing project. In chapter 396, the early days of the Phantom Troop are further explored as we focus on the passion of the group for creating and performing dubbed video content. Krollo takes on the leadership role, guiding his friends through a dubbing project for the show Power Cleaners in a local church. At the time, the group consisted of Krollo, Pakunoda, Uvogin, Shalnark, and Sarasa, each contributing to the project through voice acting and production work. During the screening, Krollo impresses everyone with his seamless ability to switch between different character voices as he proves himself to be the leader of the group. Despite some technical difficulties, Krollo manages to win over even the skeptical Uvogin, and he is inspired by the success of their project as the group starts to dream bigger, as they consider future performances and larger ambitions. Chapter 396 reveals the early seeds of the Phantom Troop as they begin to refer to themselves as a troop and contemplate expanding their membership. In the final moments, Sarasa ventures out alone to find more tapes for their project, as we start to get a few hints of a tragedy that is yet to come. Unfortunately, the good times don't last too long as the group is shattered when they realize that Sarasa has gone missing. They become increasingly anxious as they search for her, with Krollo feeling guilt for allowing her to go off alone, as he takes responsibility for organizing a search party to locate her. We see him address an audience as he apologizes for the cancellation of their next screening due to Sarasa's disappearance. With Uvogin, Krollo, and the others searching, they discover Sarasa's heart-shaped pouch near Uga Forest. Their worst fears are confirmed when they find her dismembered body in a garbage bag hanging from a tree. All of them are devastated, with Uvogin becoming enraged as he demands to know what was written in the note left with her body. Krollo, however, refuses to tell him as he advises him to learn to read so that he can read it for himself. The group mourns the death of Sarasa, particularly Machi and Pakunoda, who break down upon realizing how much she must have suffered. At her funeral, Miss Renko, a mysterious embalmer, preserves Sarasa's body using a special technique. Motivated by the injustice of Sarasa's murder, Krollo vows to avenge her death. He presents a detailed plan to Uvogin, explaining that in 3 years they will establish a system in Meteor City that will law criminals like those who killed Sarasa, allowing them to exact their revenge. Krollo compares the crime scene to a theatrical performance, as he states that the killers will be drawn back to the stage that they have created. Initially motivated by raw emotion, Uvogin wants to seek immediate revenge, but Krollo's conviction and vision for the future convinces him to be patient. Chapter 397 ends with Krollo formally assuming the role of the Phantom Troop's leader, with the others fully committing to his plan. Krollo declares that he will dedicate his life to making the world fear them, as he promises that nobody else from Meteor City will suffer as Sarasa did. Chapter 398 begins with Nobunaga, Finks, and Feitan pressuring a mafia member to enter a room that was suspected of being booby-trapped by the Haley family. The troop debate about how the trap works, with differing opinions on whether if it uses emission, conjuration, or specialization nen. They discover that the trap activates when someone leaves the room through the front door. After forcing the mafia member through, he vanishes, confirming the trap's continuous activation. Finks deduces that the trap is a landmine type, only set up in limited conditions without needing constant maintenance. In order to verify this, they send another mafia member through the door, confirming that the trap can be triggered repeatedly. Henry and Kenny of the Ziyu family arrive with a proposition, offering to help the Phantom Troop to avoid the trap and to locate the Haley hideout. Henry demonstrates his ability to turn objects into living creatures as he transforms a transmitter into an oyster that if swallowed can evade detection during searches. In order to prove his sincerity, Henry swallows the oyster himself, thus becoming a decoy. Once Henry activates the trap and is teleported to the Haley hideout, Nobunaga soon joins him, realizing that the hideout is protected by a Nen barrier, preventing them from simply cutting through walls. As they explore the hideout, they hypothesize that more traps and enemies will lie ahead as they get ready for an inevitable confrontation. They then find a recently abandoned laundry room, as Nobunaga deduces that nearby civilians may have been used to alert the Haley of intruders. They open another door and encounter several Haley members including Terrabellum, Souffle, and Perigord, who remain unfazed by their presence. Henry throws a knife at Terrabellum, but Terrabellum's ability Damage Sweet Home transfers the damage to a nearby drink can. Tensions escalate when Yokotani, the Haley's lawyer, uses the conjuration ability A Battle of Wits LSDF. This summons invincible puppets which restrain intruders based upon their crimes. Nobunaga and Henry, charged with trespassing and attempted murder, face puppets at the highest alert level. The puppets restrain Nobunaga, confiscating his katana and teleporting him away from the hideout. Henry retreats to the laundry room and hides the transmitter, ensuring that the Haley won't detect it. Meanwhile, we see that Nobunaga has been teleported back to room 3101 as he reflects on the trap's dual purpose as both a teleportation device and a secret passageway. Henry later rejoins Nobunaga, confirming the transmitter is in place as they decide to divide their efforts, with Henry gathering intelligence on the hideout's location and the Phantom Troop continuing their search for the transmitter. On the third tier, Finks and Phaeton continue tracking the transmitter as they suspect that the Haley hideout is directly above or below them. They are joined by Nobunaga, who appears to be concerned about Morina, the boss of the Haley, as he says that she is likely on the upper tiers. As they head to tier 4 of the Black Whale, Phaeton detects the signal weakening, confirming that the hideout is on tier 2. Nobunaga comments on the strategic cunningness of the Haley family, noting that while they appear to be amateurish, they actually are dangerous. Meanwhile, we cut to Prince Tyson as we learn that her Book of Love appears to have a calming influence on its readers, as she considers to share it with the king in order to end the succession war. Elsewhere on the ship, Kacho's guardian spirit beast, which has taken her form following her death, reassures Melody that her sacrifice was voluntary. Kacho's beast declares that Fugetsu must become the king and keeps her death a secret from her sister in order to protect her emotionally. Melody, however, is distraught as she grapples with her own feelings of guilt. She now faces a difficult situation as 5 princes have requested for her presence, as they consider her to be a potential assassin thanks to her musical abilities. The investigator working with Melody even suggests to use poison during her performances. Melody is unsure of who to trust as she tries to navigate the dangerous landscape while at the same time trying to protect Fugetsu and herself. Meanwhile, Fugetsu reveals to Kacho that she has unlocked new abilities, enabling her to use her Nen power more frequently. However, her worsening physical condition suggests a heavy toll. Melody later meets Fugetsu and senses a strange aura filled with evil spirits around her. This raises concerns about the cost of Fugetsu's newfound powers. By the end of the chapter, Melody and the others, including Kurapika, begin to create a plan on how to deal with the dangers that they are facing, as they know all too well that strategic alliances, deception, and careful negotiations will be critical in surviving the succession war. Chapter 400 ended with Kurapika agreeing to work together with Prince Tubepa. And that's pretty much all of the key details from the succession contest arc, as I've tried my best not to get lost with the details, but it's so easy to when it comes to Hunter x Hunter, because there is so much rich nuance and detail which Togashi pours into the story. I do hope that this video has helped you to have a better understanding of the story arc, and you're now ready to read chapter 401 when it drops. It is no exaggeration to say that there are so many moving parts here, with different factions and characters involved with this succession war, and honestly I'm looking forward to seeing it wrapped up within the next batch of chapters which Togashi drops. And I do hope that the Black Whale eventually does land upon the Dark Continent, and we can finally see this highly anticipated unexplored land. Now, we reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Do let me know all of your thoughts about the current goings on within Hunter x Hunter, and if you're as excited as I am for the return of the manga, with chapter 401 just around the corner. Thanks for making making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Hunter x Hunter video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.